I write, I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear. Switch a scenario, my stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show. Once again with your host, Nick Bernabe, here on ucy.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. Also, now featured to our subscribers. Hopefully we've got some new subscribers listening in. Thank you, first of all, for subscribing to our website, and second of all, for listening in to us talk about what the hell is going on in this world tonight. I mean, God, we've only got less than a week before the craziest election in modern history. I mean, the majority of our listeners are in the millennial age range, so, you know, in our lifetimes, this is the craziest thing that's happened politically. So we're about to come to the climax, if we could use that without the sexual innuendo. That's what's happening, man. Climax Tuesday, November 8th. What's going to happen? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, for the longest time, it just seemed like Hillary's got this thing wrapped up, right? That's what it seemed like. And then all of a sudden the FBI comes in, throws a wrench into the program. Now everybody's calculations are being reworked and everybody's changing what they were saying. Well, you know, I'm one of those people. I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to talk about it tonight, though, with our panel. We're going to be taking some callers. Make sure you catch us 5 days a week, though. The Anti-Media Radio is here Monday through Friday, and I think Jake, who's joining us tonight on the program, is actually going to be taking over on Fridays. Right, Jake? What's up, man?
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been begging DB to help me, and I think he's going to be on there too. And my ostensible plan is to kind of go into some of those places that the anti-media goes into some dark corners, but sometimes it doesn't go into the deepest, darkest corner. And I'm talking about conspiracy theories. And so I want to try and take it into that realm that the media doesn't talk about, but which is there. You know, things like the deep state and false flags and stuff like that, because that's stuff that needs to be talked about.
Oh, looking forward to it. I mean, we did a lot of different things on this program. You know, me and DB have been doing the Anti-Media Radio for like 3 years now. You know, going back even before the website was really much of anything, and it was just, you know, us on Facebook. You know, the anti-media started as a hobby of mine while I was, you know, working, and on my off time I was at the time living in the back in my mom's couch. I was going through some rough times, and I was running the anti-media Facebook page out of the backyard. That was my office. You know, we're based here in San Diego, and you know, we've got a very temperate climate all year round. So I was literally working out of the backyard of my mom's house off of this old busted laptop, and it was a Facebook page. And now it's grown into this, relatively large website. We're in the top 7,000 websites in the world, in the United States, which is pretty big considering the fact that there's like billions of websites out there. Top 7,000. I mean, it's not, we're by no means approaching the likes of Huffington Post or anything like that yet. But we've got ambitions, and we're trying to definitely take this thing to the next level. And this radio show is all part of that. And we're trying to make these interactive media, and we're taking the new homepage, and that's something I really wanted to talk about. The new homepage of the Anti-Media. It's coming out. It's rolling out. We're investing a lot of our resources into it. And we're hoping to become basically one of the most interactive news websites on the internet. And mainly what we want to become is the homepage of independent media, where you can go to somewhere where you can find links and news stories from all the different websites that you're into. And we're gonna have our anti-media editorial content. We're gonna have aggregated news from a bunch of our partners, and then we're gonna have a section of the new website where the audience gets to crowdsource what news should be on our front page. So it'll be links that are submitted through the people that are reading our website will be on our front page as well. So we're really hoping to become really interactive. And also here on the radio show too, we're taking calls. If you want to call in, the number is 718-717-8296, and we're open to talk about whatever you want to talk about. We've had so many amazing callers on our radio show, and really have brought in my perspective. And sometimes we get trolls calling in. Sometimes we have people that are talking about something that's just absolutely nuts. Sometimes we have people that really talk about some awesome things, and it's really great to hear. And that's what we're trying to do, is just really reflect the people's thinking here at the Anti-Media, and not be puppeting these corporate media talking points. And we're not trying to promote Hillary Clinton, and we're not trying to promote Donald Trump. I mean, hell, we haven't even promoted much of the third parties, even though I'm personally friendly towards the third parties, but I don't want to promote them and have them sell false promises and stuff like that either. I mean, we leave all that stuff up to our audience to decide on their own and stuff. So we're not endorsing any candidate or anything like that. But what we're really trying to do is break free information that is rare, and information that is hard to come by, information that's currently being rolled out by WikiLeaks on a daily basis. I mean, this is a gold mine. I mean, people should be so happy about what's going on with WikiLeaks, and it's so disappointing to see these so-called Democrats and so-called progressives condemning WikiLeaks. It's so sad to see back when this stuff was coming out about the Iraq War and about Bush and that kind of stuff, the Democrats were applauding this kind of stuff. And now that it's coming out against the female Republican running for president right now, Democrat. Sometimes I mix them up there because it's such a gray area with Hillary Clinton, because she seems like a Republican on almost every issue except for the social issues. So I get confused on that. But it's sad to see the hypocrisy, and it also shines through with what went on with what's going on right now with the FBI. Because think about back, I think it was in July when the FBI came out and they were like, "Oh, we're not going to charge Hillary Clinton, even though we found out that she did do some questionable things." And pretty much everyone on the Republican side was like, "Oh my God, the FBI is politicized, and they're just." The Obama administration is controlling the FBI. They're not letting them do their job, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's probably pretty true. Now that the FBI came out just a couple days ago, and they're like, we're looking back into this email case because of Anthony Weiner. Now it's the Democrats that are saying, oh, the FBI is politicized. The FBI is, working with the Republicans. I mean, there's zero consistency there with this political establishment. They can't make up their mind. They can't decide, are we against the FBI? Are we with the FBI? Is the FBI politicized? Is it not politicized? Is it with the Republicans? Is it working with the Democrats? How, are we going to decide? It's the same thing with WikiLeaks.
They're like fickle school children.
Go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, they're like fickle school children.
Dude, it's so ridiculous. And whenever something comes out, it's like, oh, yeah, something come out that's against Republicans, and Democrats are like, oh, this is awesome information. Something comes out against the Democrats, like, The Republicans are like, "Whoa, yeah, this is awesome information." When it comes out against themselves, it's like, "Oh, they're working for the Russians." You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. That being said, let me introduce my longtime co-host, DB Schwartz. What's up, man? How you doing?
Not too bad, man. I think we're waiting for the hammer to drop on her, and I think instead what's going to happen is they're actually going to suspend these elections. Because honestly, that gives them the pretense to do what they've always wanted to do, which is test out martial law and see how we react. And if we react poorly, well, then they can take the Second Amendment away, and then it's going to be real fun.
Well, and that's why I've been so vocal about my support of the Dakota Access Pipeline protests, is because this is, people going out and standing up against some pretty deeply embedded interests, whether it's the oil interests, the political interests that are financed by the oil interests. Right now we're looking at a epic battle between, the human interest and the corporate interest, and it's playing out right now in North Dakota. I'll tell you what, from a momentum standpoint, I feel like the protesters are winning. Regardless of all the amount of people getting arrested and the amount of police brutality. I saw a post from the Morton County Sheriff's Department, which is the sheriff's department that has direct jurisdiction over the Standing Rock stuff. And they're talking about how the protesters have turned violent. It's like, wait, the protesters are violent? I mean, isn't it the cops that are like pepper spraying and arresting people and throwing them in jail? If pepper spraying somebody or using tear gas on somebody isn't violence, I mean, I don't know what is. So in my opinion, I mean, sure, there can be, the argument can be made that the people are protesting are trespassing on private property, but I don't see anybody, the people that are saying, well, these protesters shouldn't be on private property. Where were they when the pipeline company was taking people's private property through eminent domain? Where were these advocates for private property when the government was stealing people's land?
They were in Bismarck, Nick.
What was that?
They were in Bismarck, Nick. That's why they got the pipeline moved around that city, because there were advocates up there. But unlike these natives, they had a massive lawyer presence behind them, and I think maybe that's the main thing that Standing Rock really needs to have lawyers embedded, basically filming and compiling evidence, because this is potentially one of the largest human rights lawsuits that maybe has ever taken place in a modern society. It's some of the scenes I saw today with them spraying with the mace that's used for industrial crowd control right in people's faces, that can asphyxiate them and kill them. So, I mean, it's only a matter of time until one of these heavy-handed tactics kills one of these protesters, and then what? Then where do we go from there?
Exactly, dude, exactly. We're also being joined now by the amazing journalist and editor, Claire Bernish. What's up, Claire?
Not much. What's up?
Hanging in there, anticipating this election. I mean, I'm kind of I think we mentioned this last show. I'm kind of like torn between the two camps of I can't wait for this to be over, and I also at the same time enjoying the downfall of the two-party system right before possibly. So that's where I'm at. What are you up to?
I heard something interesting today. I saw a report, and remember, like a while back, I wrote for Anti-Media that Trump would be the next president. And I was I know that it was kind of a far-out chance and stuff, but I read an article today that actually gives credible legs to that, saying that maybe Trump, after he kind of soared to success early on, was actually the elite candidate, because he can end up being the fall guy for the looming financial crisis that's coming. So when Trump, if Trump takes office, then he would take responsibility for basically this global economic meltdown that's coming, and it would let the kind of Democratic establishment off the hook. I mean, there's a lot more to the theory than that, but it started to actually make some sense. And if you consider that the FBI and DOJ just reopened investigations right now, basically a week before the election, it does seem somewhat credible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing the shift, and this FBI thing has come out, and it really threw a wrench into all of my calculations because I was pretty much under the assumption Hillary Clinton was going to win. I mean, if you look at all the institutional support, and I read today that according to a report, George W. Bush is going to vote for Hillary Clinton. I mean, every single kind of established political institution in the United States is basically pulling towards Hillary Clinton, except for the quote-unquote Republican Party, which just because of obligation has to, at least in theory, support Donald Trump. Clinton is being supported by basically every institution, including the media and the political establishment, the neoconservative establishment, the foreign policy, the military-industrial complex, even the foreign media overseas, the British media, I mean, you name it, and the think tanks, and everybody, Hollywood, and everybody is like, okay, yeah, Clinton, 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 Clinton. But she is so damn unliked, and so corrupt, and just so imperfect of a candidate, that despite all of that stuff, Trump, even with all of his scandals and, bragging about grabbing women by the genitals and all of the accusations of sexual misconduct. He's got a rape case against him, accused of raping a 13-year-old girl that ties in, we talked about last show actually, that ties in with Jeffrey Epstein, who also had flown, DB, we were talking about this last episode, I was researching it today.
Yeah, it's going to implicate both of them. This is why they're going to have to suspend the elections, Nick.
Bill Clinton was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane on record 26 separate times, which is known as the Lolita Express. And this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, is a billionaire. He's also a convicted pedophile. He had a private island where he would have these huge orgies with a bunch of rich, famous, influential people. And many times, at least according to accusations, with underage girls that were as young as, 13, 12 probably. And Bill Clinton was in with that. Donald Trump was in with that. And so this is a very, very sensitive issue. In fact, we published a story on this yesterday that was our biggest story of the day. It didn't go super viral or anything, but it got a lot of traction. And then our website started getting attacked. As soon as this article started getting traction, our website started getting attacked, and then we started having periodic outages. So it's a very sensitive subject that people don't want to get out there. A lot of extremely powerful, rich people don't want this news getting out because Jeffrey Epstein, if we ever got to the bottom of what Jeffrey Epstein was involved with, it would take down the entire system. It would take down the entire political and corporate system because a bunch of people, and this guy, I don't know what his deal was. I'm pretty sure he was involved with just blackmailing rich people.
Nick, the fate of the free world is in the hands of the NYPD now. How scary is that?
that doesn't sound very good because we all know the NYPD is pretty horrible. But I mean, this FBI thing has really swung around what was going on with the election. It seemed like Clinton was going to be the president, and now we're looking at right now at this point kind of like a draw, where the polls are pretty much evened out. So it depends.
But Nick, like you were saying, no matter who gets in, both candidates have impending massive criminal lawsuits against them, criminal cases against them.
Exactly, and so regardless of who wins, this criminality aspect is going to be hanging over their heads, and so whether Trump ends up getting charged for the raping of this 13-year-old girl, or if Clinton ends up getting charged for whatever it is they're researching on her as far as the mishandling of classified information.
Some of the tapes came out today, Nick. I don't know how much you've delved into it, but one of them showed her probably in her late 20s, early 30s, meeting with a known bouncer and fixer in Arkansas and saying, I want it to look like an accident, but if it doesn't, it's okay. and it's real vague, it's real grainy, but I mean, it's pretty obviously her. It sounds like her, and man, it's going to come out that earlier in her career, especially, people just drop like flies, and bodies are still dropping, and these are the dots that are going to be connected on top of all the stuff with Epstein. I mean, it's just going to be too much, man. And for her to try to transfer all her wealth to Qatar, I mean, they're already on top of it. They already know. That's the thing, is this is coming from the NSA. It's coming from the top. So they want Hillary gone, and it's because they can't trust her.
Interesting stuff, dude. Yeah, it definitely seems like there's a civil war going on within the government right now, and it is really crazy to see it go on.
But that's why I think there's a credible case that Trump was maybe the selected candidate the whole time. I mean, it's not as if he's anti-establishment. Like, people are making that mistake and saying that Trump is like, oh, he's not a politician, so he's anti-establishment. Yep. It's like, no, that's just not true at all. I mean, he's been friends with the Clinton family for decades, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's silly to think that. So there is really a plausible case to say that he really could win this election. Both of them are criminals. Neither of them deserve to even be nominees, but nonetheless, I think that's a possibility we can't ignore.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is that this is the thing that people forget. Both Trump and Clinton have been on the receiving end of political corruption for a very long time. You know, Trump was on the corporate end where he was buying off politicians, and he's funded Clinton. He has funded the Clinton Foundation. He's funded several politicians. He's funded gun-grabbing politicians in California, for instance. And then on the other end, you know, Clinton has been on the receiving end of the corporate corruption revolving door, where she has spent the last, you know, second half of her life in the political career, and she's worth like $250 million. How does that happen? How are you worth $250 million when you've been a politician for half your life? Well, from being extremely corrupt and dealing with people like Donald Trump, for instance, who personally did, you know, finance Hillary Clinton several different times in several different ways.
Like selling 20% of our uranium to the Russians.
Yeah, the Russians are coming. The Russians are coming, and we're selling them our uranium so that we can help them. It's just, oh man, it's just a big circus. I hope people aren't buying into it. And I know the people listening to our show tonight are pretty much, for the most part, are more on the awakened side of things. I wouldn't say woke, because that's just a stupid... I'm just tired of people saying woke, because it's just someone co-opting the awakening trend and turning it into something it's not.
The rabbit hole never ends. So if anybody says I'm woke or I'm awakened or I'm ascended, no, you're not. It never ends. The rabbit hole never, ever, ever ends.
Keep going. You got to keep.
And we're gonna go down that rabbit hole on Fridays, right, buddy?
Well, yeah, man, we're gonna be forced to, because these election shenanigans are unparalleled in our history, and they forebode something. So I guess we have 1 week left to see what that may be.
Yeah, there's something very, very rotten going on, and I mean, obviously we know rotten stuff's always been going on, but there's something very particular about this. There's just something. It's too strange that the FBI director Comey coming out and saying that
it's disclosure, but it's not what we think. And I kind of have some of the puzzle figured out, and maybe we'll go over it Friday. But disclosure's coming. It's just not at all what we think it is. It's not E.T. coming down in a flying saucer.
Well, what the hell is it?
Well, I mean, part of it's going to be that what we learned about who won World War II is completely bullshit. And the second part is disclosure is going to be, oh shit, everything we learned is bullshit, and we're in some imminent danger.
Well,
I feel you.
Well, you guys will be diving into that stuff on Friday, right?
Yeah, we're going to be in the rabbit hole. We're going to be nibbling on the roots down in the hole. We'll be down there for so long. That's the only way we'll be able to survive, is nibbling on the roots.
Yeah, well, when you go down the rabbit hole, you got to eat the carrot.
We'll be down there so long, the rabbit hole will buy us a drink.
Oh, man. on that Russian stuff, former British ambassador to Uzbekistan, I guess he's kind of a obscure figure at this point, but he's saying, hey, I know for sure it's not the Russians that are giving those leaks to the DNC. It's somebody within Washington, D.C., a disgruntled somebody, which is something that we've mentioned several times. And in fact, it was speculated several months ago that one guy, what was his name, Seth Rich, a worker for the DNC that was mysteriously killed, that it was possible that he was the leaker and stuff. And so...
you mean the Bernie bro? The Bernie bro that had to get snuffed out?
Yeah, the Bernie...
He had to have been involved. Why would Julian Assange have gone on TV and mentioned his name, association with the murder, and why his journalists have to be careful? Why would he have said that? It doesn't make sense unless that was his way of signaling that Rich was the leaker.
He had, I guess, tallies of votes that didn't correlate when they were tracked against physical hand counts. And because the primaries, there's no official way to do that, I guess. The machines are just, that's the results. But I don't think they can pull this off in the primaries, so I'm not quite sure how they're going to ram her in, really.
Yeah, I know.
Snowden was saying the same thing, that it's not the Russians. It's been somebody inside the government, possibly somebody inside the NSA. He's been saying that for a while, too. I mean, the Intercept today tore apart the idea that it was Russian hackers that did any of this. And I'm really glad, because it's a ridiculous narrative. It's just all meant to feed that whole Russian aggression thing, which is, a pile of crap.
If it was really the Russian hackers and we could turn our U.S. apparatus against them, we would have already. But because there's no actual evidence, it's not like anyone who's legitly in the CIA is going to go, well, yeah, I'm going to buy this bullshit the media is putting out. Everybody on the inside already knows everything coming out of the media is just complete crap anyway. So they're not buying it. Yeah. So they can't get a war going with Russia.
And, there was I've got a source, and I of course can't say who it is, but I've got somebody, an intelligence worker, who previously made me privy to some information which went back, nothing in particular on these DNC stuff and these Russian accusations and stuff, but this goes back to, do you guys remember when North Korea was accused of hacking into Sony and all that? Supposedly because they were so upset about that movie or whatever. I mean, that was bogus as well. And so the United States many times will falsely blame hacks on foreign actors when that's not really the case. And so I've got a source who is in the intelligence community within the government, can't say which branch or anything like that, but I was informed that the Sony hack was not done by North Korea, but that didn't matter because the United States officially blamed North Korea for the hack, and in fact, they also retaliated. I don't know if you guys remember, but it was only about a month or a little more than a month after the Sony hack that the entire internet of North Korea was knocked out. Now, they only have 30 websites or whatever, but a lot of their government is run on using internet connections and stuff. And the internet was knocked out in North Korea, and there was a cyber attack against their central bank. And according to my source, that was initiated covertly by the United States. And so technically it was kind of like a false flag. It wasn't North Korea that hacked Sony, but they were blamed for it, and the United States retaliated against North Korea for the Sony hack. And so knowing that, I'm not surprised at all that a lot of the U.S. government is coming out and saying, oh, it's the Russians are doing it. But they're not giving us any concrete proof. And that's the thing to me that you got to be really suspect about. If they're not giving us concrete evidence saying, okay, look, we know it was the Russians because of this, and here's our proof. And since they're not doing that, they're just coming out and saying, well, you got to take our word for it. It was the Russians, so, we got to, they're interfering, and this is, this is unprecedented, so we need to hype up our anti-Russian rhetoric, and, if we need to start bombing them in Syria or whatever, you guys won't question it because they're trying to interfere in our quote-unquote democracy.
It's problem solution. It's problem reaction solution. It's classic Hegelian dialectic here. They're creating a problem. They're trying to solve it in the public eye, and then they will provide a solution. It's classic.
Right. Yeah. And The Intercept had a good article. The entire article was just titled, "If this intelligence is manufactured," because that's one of the claims that they put out there, is that some of these documents may just be completely false and just made up. Well, prove it. That's something you could easily prove, but they don't do it. These are psyops they're doing. Like you guys are saying, the whole point of this, my theory is that they realize now how dangerous WikiLeaks is, and how dangerous these hacks are. I mean, they're going to go full-on war against leaks and hacks. That's going to be the next war.
Yeah, and,
exactly.
I made this status the other day on my personal Facebook page. You guys, I won't even have you guys follow me because I recycle my Facebook profile so often because of Facebook censorship. But anyway, I made the point that in 2016, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton have become the biggest conspiracy theorists. And I know, Jake, you've got some interesting thoughts on what's going on with Trump and stuff, but Clinton and Trump have both been relying heavily on conspiracy theories that are unproven and that are most likely made up. And of course, with Hillary Clinton, as we've been talking about, it's, the Russians are behind it, and the Russians are meddling in our election, and Donald Trump is funded by the Russian, or Donald Trump is somehow connected to the Russians. First of all, the FBI released information today that said, no, Donald Trump is not, we looked into it, and Donald Trump, as far as we can tell, is not connected to the Russians. Secondly, they haven't provided any proof that the Russians are meddling in our election, that the Russians are behind the DNC leaks, that the Russians are behind the Podesta emails, that the Russians are behind Guccifer or Guccifer 2.0. None of that stuff has been proven. So it's all conspiracy theory. On the other hand, you got Donald Trump, where he's being misattributed to a conspiracy theory on the elections being rigged, when that's actually not a conspiracy theory. That's more closer to reality, because now we see what went on with the Democratic primary and how it was all pretty much set up and rigged in favor of Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. So that's more fact. And the voting machines are easily hackable. You could easily meddle in the elections. I mean, the Bush-Gore election, Florida in 2000, something went awkward, something went bad down over there as well. We all know.
Dade County in Ohio in 2004.
You know it, I know it, everybody knows it, right? So Trump is being misattributed as a conspiracy theorist on that front, but Trump is a conspiracy theorist on like the anti-Islam front, that Muslims are gonna take over the country and they're gonna put Sharia law in place, and that you can't be safe walking down the streets, and that the Mexicans are going to take all of our jobs, and that those are conspiracy theories, because those aren't true. They're not true. That's not happening.
That could never happen here.
I don't even think Trump believes that. I think he's just saying that because he knows that's how to rally the ignorant masses.
Yeah, I mean,
that's how to establish Fortress America and build that wall to keep us in.
Xenophobic nationalism, man. That's the new Republican Party if Trump has his way. And then, I don't know if the old Republican Party is going to split off, create its own party, or if it's just going to join forces with the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party will continue its shift to the right, which has been happening ever since Obama got into office. I mean, Obama ran as a leftist. He ran for president as a leftist, but he's governed as a neoconservative that has been progressive on social issues. And that seems to be the winning recipe as far as quelling the populace is, let's give them a break on social issues. Let's let them have their marijuana. Let's let them have their gay marriage. Let's let them have their social things, their abortion and all that stuff. While at the same time, let's let us have our empire. And that's what Obama has embodied. And that's what I can see as a Democratic Party shifting in that direction. They're shifting, they're progressive on social issues only, and they're extremely neoconservative on everything that has to do with foreign policy and the American empire. And that Hillary Clinton is just the biggest neoconservative to ever openly run for president, from what I could tell. I mean, she is more hawkish than George Bush was when he was running. George Bush ran on a libertarian foreign policy platform. I mean,
have you ever seen a segment of American society more than the modern liberal, which is actually a neocon in disguise? What it is it's like this. They give the government credit for stuff that they should never be involved in anyway. The government should never have a say in social issues ever anyway. It should be up to every individual community. And then because of getting credit for that crap, which doesn't belong in their realm, they get a pass on actually going out and spreading democracy by bomb.
Exactly, dude. I couldn't have said it any better. Yeah. You know, it's like, oh, look how good we are. We're letting people, you know, and that's the thing. You got to put that in quotes. We're letting people that are gay get married now. It's like, why were you ever stopping them before? You should have never been involved in the marriage business to begin with, guy. Like, you should have never been...
dude, it's two consenting adults. It's human rights.
You never should have got in the business of taxing people that weren't married and then prohibiting people that have certain sexual orientations from not getting married. I mean, and then when they finally say, "Oh yeah, Obama, he presided over the fact that same-sex marriage and stuff," it's like, good job, dude. Should have never been there in the first place. But all right, yeah, that's a great point. And so they're able to pretend like they're so compassionate on these social issues, and they go around bombing the shit out of everyone else around the world and imposing our will on countries in all around Asia and the Middle East and South America, Latin America, everywhere. And the people at home are distracted with reality TV and this, that, and the other. And their social wedge issues and stuff, and they pretty much get a pass to do whatever in the hell they want, whether they spend $5-6 trillion bucks nation building in Iraq or not. They get a pass on it. No one's really questioning that stuff at this point.
But that's the thing. That's the only difference between the parties. Like one party placates the populace with things that the government shouldn't be involved with. And the other placates the populace with things that it feels like it appeals to the authoritarian nature in the populace. I mean, there really isn't any other difference in these parties. Like, they're just these little kind of palliative efforts to placate the populace, and that's it. Other than that, the overarching philosophy of this government in general, like this duopoly, is to go and bomb the crap out of everybody around the world and cause death and destruction and, further the empire. And that's it. But the empire is drawing to a close. And so now you see, both the social policies at home being more and more polarized and more extreme, but you also see, even greater efforts worldwide to kind of, grasp onto this empire, this imperialism, and try to kind of reassert ourselves as if, the U.S. is still relevant when you have all these other countries aligning and making basically a new axis as if it was World War II, essentially proving the U.S. no longer has relevance. It's as if everybody looking in from the outside can tell that we're on the decline, and everybody here refuses to see it.
Oh, great point. I mean, it is in decline, and Claire, there was a article that you published over on Underground Reporter about what's going on between the U.S. and the Philippines. I mean, the Philippines is pretty much our oldest colony. I mean, I would call it a colony because it's not officially a colony anymore, but it's kind of like our doormat into Southeast Asia. And, I was doing some research on that because now that it's become like a relevant political topic, I was looking into it, and what happened in the Philippines is back at the turn of the century, back in the late 1800s. The United States went to war with Spain over Cuba, and the U.S. kicked the shit out of Spain basically, and at the time, the Philippines was a colony of Spain, and so when we kicked the shit out of Spain, not only did we force them to hand over Cuba, but we told them, hey, dude, you guys got to hand over the Philippines as well. And so at the same time, while we were working this deal and fighting with Spain, we were working with the Philippines, and we told them, "Hey, you guys help us fight against Spain, and we're going to guarantee your independence once we beat them." And so once we beat Spain, the U.S. kind of went back on its agreement with the Philippines and said, "Hey guys, now you're our colony." And the Philippines was like, "Wait, you guys promised us independence. We wanted our independence. We didn't want to just change from being a Spanish colony to an American colony. That didn't make sense to us." And so then there was the Filipino-American War, where we went and fought the Philippines for like 10 years and slaughtered a bunch of people and kicked a bunch of ass, and a bunch of people died, and a bunch of bad things happened and stuff. And then they eventually beat the Philippines, and they became a colony of the United States, and they were supposed to gain their independence in the late 1940s, but then World War II went on. Japan ended up taking over the Philippines, and then we went back and took the Philippines back from Japan. And, ever since then, the Philippines has been kind of sort of a vassal country of the United States. They've been under our sphere of influence. The government has been very friendly. We've been kind of giving them military aid and having our military stationed there and occupying certain parts of the country. But there's been like this festering movement of anti-Americanism in the Philippines ever since what happened way back, 120 years ago, when we, slaughtered a bunch of people in those villages, and then the ongoing military presence in the Philippines. A lot of these guys in the military, they wind up raping women and committing crimes over there in the Philippines, and they've got like, for the most part, a lot of places have like diplomatic immunity where like the guys do commit crimes and they can't even be charged in like Filipino courts or anything. They just get like charged in the U.S. military, and they get a slap on the wrist or whatever. And so there's been kind of like these festering sentiments there where the people over there like had it with our shit. And Claire, as you were mentioning, this kind of plays into this idea of how the U.S. is an empire in decline, because now the Philippines, with their newly elected president, who is very much a populist, and I don't like the guy personally. He's vicious. He's killed like upwards of like 3,000-4,000 people already in this war on drugs, extrajudicial war on drugs, where they just like kill people who they suspect to be drug dealers and stuff. I don't like the guy at all, but at the same time, he is very much snubbing the United States empire. He's threatening to kick us out. I mean, they've all but severing diplomatic ties at this time. And today, the United States announced that it was not going to sell them, like, 25,000 assault rifles that they were scheduled to sell them. So diplomatic ties with the Philippines are pretty much on the rocks as we speak. But again, this goes back to this idea that we're starting to lose a lot of our allies, and the Philippines isn't the only one. There's a lot of other ones, right?
Yeah, the Philippines isn't what it's not the Philippines. It's not limited.
Claire,
A very long time. I mean,
okay, we got
yeah.
you back. Sorry, you cut out for a second, but you're back now.
Oh, so Egypt has been a longtime ally of the U.S. and almost like a puppet government of the U.S. for for years and years. And we've lost Egypt to Russia, essentially. We've lost the Philippines. We are in the process of losing Vietnam, Malaysia, Laos, all sorts of different Asian countries. India, it's really interesting the way that this is playing out, because even Saudi Arabia is now making deals with Russia about oil. We're looking at like a domino effect that it seems as if Putin has been plotting for a very long time to kind of amass allies to ensure that when, the inevitable fall of the U.S. empire occurs, he will have the right allies on his side to have, not only kind of a monopoly on oil, but a monopoly on oil transport and everything else. I mean, he's made these alliances subtly, and for a long time it was slowly, but recently it's kind of picked up. As far as like the South China Sea is concerned, the only allies we really have left there that are really solid are Japan and South Korea. And there's an argument that South Korea might not even be all that long for the books. So this is a really interesting time. I think that the world sees that the U.S. is in decline. You know, we've kind of tried to assert dominance all over the world, and we have our government has reaped the rewards for a long time, and much to the consternation of the world, and that's drawing to a close very quickly. I don't necessarily think it's going to result in nuclear war or even world war necessarily, but it's a distinct possibility. And unless the U.S. kind of admits defeat and turns tail and walks away, this could get very ugly very quickly.
I think the U.S. is suffering. You know, if you go back and you research empires from throughout the ages, you know, and they all kind of suffer similar fates. You know, no empire that existed, you know, all previous empires outside of the United States have now fallen. The most recent would be, you know, the USSR. The USSR no longer exists. But every empire previously, you know, the British Empire fell, the French, the Spanish, you know, all these European countries, the Italians, they all had empires in Africa, in the Americas, in Asia. They all had empires. They no longer exist anymore, even though they try to pretend like they still do. With the French in Africa, the Italians in Africa, Libya and Mali, you know, the Middle East, Syria and Iraq, you know, they all try to pretend like they still got all this stuff going on. They don't. But the U.S. is suffering a very similar fate that you see happen in a lot of empires that were in decline in the past. So a bunch of the people who, you know, in the old days, empires would like physically have control over certain areas. Like the British had physical control over Pakistan and India and the Americas and Canada and Australia. And sooner or later, those countries rebel against, or, you know, they kick them out, they fight against them. But nowadays, since we have this new kind of structure of an empire where it's like a corporate empire, and it's like, okay, we just do corporate deals, and we don't actually physically, by force, you know, occupy their lands, even though, yeah, we do have military presence in those places. We're not physically, militarily controlling them and stuff. We're starting to see that a lot of these kind of proxy countries, whether it's the Philippines and now Turkey, Saudi Arabia, you know, Malaysia, Egypt, and all these other countries that are like previously part of the U.S. proxy empire, the U.S. corporate empire in many ways, they're all starting to distance themselves from us. And that's been something that has afflicted every single empire that's existed in the past. You know, most empires don't end up being defeated by just 100% external invaders. Someone invades them and just beats them. Normally that's part of it, but that's not the whole thing. Most times what happens is territories that you've conquered start rebelling against you, and once too many of them rebel at the same time, you no longer have the resources to try to quell every single one of these rebellions. And then you start having invasions, and then you start having internal strife, civil unrest. That's going on right now in the United States. Look at North Dakota. Look at the inner cities in the United States. Look at what's going on with all the police shootings and all the riots and all the uprisings and all the protesting and all the stuff going on. We've got every ingredient here in the United States of a empire in decline. And, you know, whether people want to accept it or not, it doesn't matter. It's happening. But it's better that you start knowing about it and preparing and understanding what's happening, so that you're better prepared to take it in stride and not have your life be put on the line, or not wind up in the bread lines, or not wind up starving out in the streets because you get taken by surprise. It's better to know this stuff as it happens. I'm not saying the United States empire is going to be collapsing tomorrow, or that this that this election is going to usher in the collapse of the empire. That may not be the case, but over the next couple decades, over the next 50 years, 100 years, I mean, whether it's a slow collapse or an abrupt one, you know, we should know that it's coming, because all the signs are already there. We can no longer, our resources are spread thin, our military is spread thin. It's almost impossible now for these guys to recruit new members of the military. You know, we've kind of tapped out all of our financial innovation with the, you know, with central banking and quantitative Sorry, we're back. My computer went dark on me for some reason. That was just really weird. Let me get my panel back together because we don't got too much time. I am going to be taking some calls. And of course we're very intense conversation going on, obviously. But it's dealing with a very precarious situation here, where some people are privy to the fact that we're an empire in decline, and other people, and I hate to say it, but not only a majority, but a vast majority of people are under the impression that everything is fine, everything is just a-okay, and as long as we just elect Hillary Clinton, everything's gonna be fine. But that's just, I think that to believe that it's kind of just putting your head in the sand. We got to really be more closely paying attention to what's really happening. It isn't.
I think that it's important. There's two ways that this empire can go down, honestly, and I'm not sure what Trump or Hillary would offer in a different vein. But when the British Empire folded, it kind of tucked tail and pulled back and reined in. It was difficult, but it kind of reined in its power and reined in its hegemony. We have that option still, as the U.S. government still has that option that we can kind of stop trying to champion the world. And if we do so, then there's a chance that it would be quite so bad. But if we still try to aggressively boast and kind of arrogantly posture around the world and continue this aggression, then it could end very badly and very quickly and very destructively. There are really two options at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what?
Yeah, man.
You know what? It's
the media establishment, man. They're, they really should support Hillary Clinton. I think they're trying to bring a civil uprising, man. Because they're supporting Clinton, now they're slowly turning on her. But it's becoming too late, man. Everybody's starting to see how corrupt she is. But, I think they're going to have her win it all. And there'll be a civil war, brother.
Caller 314, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
What's going on, brother?
Oh, hanging in there. Thanks for calling in. So, what do you think of this election? I mean, are you supporting Trump, or are you just critical of Clinton?
I'm supporting Trump after everything about Hillary Clinton. Still bombs Muslims and then funds them, and supporting ISIS. I think she's guilty of treason. Simple as that, brother. And I think the elite want her to win, and they're going to push for a civil war. You know what I'm saying? Because they've been supporting Clinton this whole time. Now they're stopping all these emails and all these documents. She basically should be in jail right now. But I think it's too late, boy. She's going to win. She's going to win the election, and there's going to be a civil war. That's what I believe.
Well,
right around Russia's getting ready to nuke, and it's just getting crazy, brother. I'm scared.
Thanks for your call and interesting comments. I definitely disagree with the supporting of Trump, but I do think it is pretty obvious. It is pretty obvious that Clinton has been propped up by the establishment, political, military, industrial, the media establishment. All of them have been relatively, openly in favor of Hillary Clinton and critical of Donald Trump. So on that end of the spectrum, I definitely agree with his sentiment. But as far as thinking Trump is a viable counterbalance or opposition to that, it's just not the case, because Trump is, as we mentioned earlier in the show, he's just another player in this corrupt revolving door of corporate and political power that Trump has been on the receiving end of political favors, and he's been the one that has been funding these corrupt politicians for a long time. So there's no way to make an argument that Trump is somehow going to turn all this stuff around when he's been the guy that has been the enabler of Hillary Clinton for a long time, and people like her. So you can't really make that argument. I don't really see any way to make that argument at all. I think the only thing, and this is what I was going to say before we lost our connection. The only thing that we can do here, it's not about voting Republican or Democrat or voting against Hillary Clinton or voting against Donald Trump. Again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, if you're going to vote, I'm not a voter myself personally, but if you're going to vote, I mean, why not throw it into a third party and give them a little more legitimacy while depriving these two corporate parties of any legitimacy at the same time? What is really important here is public opinion and action. And again, what's going on in North Dakota, what's going on the streets with the anti-police brutality movements and stuff. These are the things that are more likely to change the behavior of governments, movements, physical bodies in the streets, physically getting in the way of things, just like what they're doing with the pipeline. We need to start physically getting in the way of these wars. We need to physically start getting in the way of these wars, and that's the only way that we can deal with what I see and what obviously Claire sees as a declining U.S. empire, and we have to prevent them from making a huge overstep and starting a major war with Russia and China and all these other major players that seem to be shifting alliances right now. The only way we can prevent a major war that would probably coincide with the fall of the American empire is by the American public getting in the way of it. And that's really the only hope we have left. We can't hope for an election to fix it. We can't hope for anything else besides us getting in the way of it. That's all it is. And that's really what it's about. It's about the people, the public, our actions, our movements, and the things that we do and the things that we say and the way we communicate and the way we organize. That is the only way to prevent something really, really bad from happening that makes all the horrible things going on right now in the world look like nothing. They pale in comparison to what could happen with nuclear armed powers going head to head with each other. And it's become a very real prospect. I mean, this conflict in Syria and in Ukraine and all of this confrontation with Russia and, of course, what's going on with China and the South China Sea, these aren't just war games. These aren't just, we're just, playing around and we're just pushing each other. These could wind up being nuclear wars, and we can't allow that to happen if we care about life on this planet, not just human life either. But nuclear war would wipe out a lot of the biodiversity, all the animals and insects and the oceans and a bunch of the stuff. Nuclear holocaust is real. Nuclear winter. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we're dealing with. The technology is there. The weapons are already built. Ready. We have
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.